Welcome everyone to today's exciting deep dive where we are about to uncover one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that blends history, numismatic intrigue, minting blunders, and the dream of life-changing value hidden in something as ordinary as a penny. Because today we are talking about the 1970 1-cent coin that, because of its rare errors and mistakes, has been valued at a staggering $6 million, making it one of the most unbelievable treasures in the realm of collectible money. And as we unravel this journey, we'll explore not just the coin itself, but the context of how such a small copper coin minted in Denver could rise to fame, how collectors have gone to great lengths to track down every variation, and why even the tiniest mistake from a United States minting machine can elevate a 1-cent piece from pocket change to a multi-million-dollar masterpiece. So let's begin at the heart of the story, the year 1970, a time when the United States was still navigating the aftermath of the 1960s. The Vietnam War was ongoing, social and cultural revolutions were reshaping America, and in the midst of all of this, coins continued to be produced in staggering numbers, with the Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, still serving as the backbone of American currency circulation. And by 1970, the Lincoln cent had already been through several design shifts, the addition of the Lincoln Memorial in 1959 being the most recent major change, making the reverse of the coin feature that iconic Washington, D.C. landmark. So now, when you look at a 1970 penny, you see Lincoln on the obverse with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the year 1970, and on the reverse you see the memorial with "United States of America, e pluribus unum," and 1 cent. But the Denver Mint, responsible for the 1970 pennies, produced millions of these coins, and within that vast output, mistakes occurred that would forever separate the ordinary from the extraordinary, creating an incredibly small subset of error coins that today command the kind of value most people can only dream of, and it is these minting errors that turn a 1-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar collectible. So what kinds of errors are we talking about, and how do they happen? Well, to understand that, we have to step into the world of coin production itself, where dies are engraved with the designs that will be pressed onto blanks, where the alignment of these dies must be perfect, where pressure and strikes have to be precise, and where even the tiniest misstep can result in something unusual, sometimes dramatic, sometimes subtle, but always potentially valuable to the right collector. And the 1970 penny is a textbook example of this, because certain specimens show double die obverse errors, where the lettering and date appear double due to misalignment of the dies during the hubbing process, making the year 1970 look like it has a ghostly twin image, and collectors go wild for double die errors, especially when they are dramatic and visible to the naked eye. But even beyond the double die, there are off-center strikes where the design is shifted off the planchet, partial collars where the edge is distorted, and even wrong planchet errors where a coin is struck on metal meant for another denomination, creating something so rare that only a handful might exist. And in the case of the 1970 penny, one of the most famous errors is the double die obverse variety that gives it that incredible mystique. Now, why does this matter so much? After all, a doubled image or a slightly off strike doesn't change the metal content of the coin, which in 1970 was 95% copper and 5% zinc. But in the world of numismatics, rarity is everything. And when a mistake is rare enough, when only a tiny fraction of coins out of millions minted contain the error, then demand soars. And when demand soars among wealthy collectors who want to own the very best, the price can reach astronomical heights, which is exactly what has happened here, with one example of the 1970 penny with a dramatic double die obverse selling for millions, driving the belief and market narrative that these coins can be worth up to $6 million under the right circumstances. And this is where the psychology of collecting kicks in, because collectors are not just buying metal. They are buying stories, they are buying history, they are buying the thrill of knowing that they own something virtually no one else does. And with the 1970 penny, the story is irresistible. A small copper coin intended for ordinary pockets, but instead destined for fame due to an accident at the mint, and to think about how many 1970 pennies have been casually spent over the decades. How many may still be lurking in jars, drawers, piggy banks, or old collections, makes the hunt even more tantalizing, because anyone, anywhere, might still stumble upon one of these rare treasures and discover that their penny is not just worth 1 cent, but millions. And that is the allure of coin collecting in general, the idea that value hides in plain sight, that history lives in our hands, that wealth can be tucked away unnoticed until the right eyes find it. So when we talk about the 1970 penny being worth $6 million, we're not just talking about the physical coin, we're talking about the convergence of history, error, rarity, demand, and the timeless appeal of discovery. And what makes this even more fascinating is the range of errors that can occur, because not every valuable 1970 penny is the same. Some show strong double dies on the obverse where liberty, or in God we trust, appears doubled. Some show less dramatic but still collectible doubling. Others are struck slightly off-center. Others have die breaks that create raised lines or blobs of extra metal, sometimes nicknamed cuds or die chips, and each variation has its own market value. But the king among them, the crown jewel, is the bold double die obverse that can bring life-changing sums. And this leads us to ask, how do these errors slip through? Doesn't the mint have quality control? And the answer is yes. But when you are producing millions upon millions of coins per day, it is inevitable that a few slip by, and those few, by sheer chance, become legends. And in the case of the 1970 penny, Denver's output was so massive that even though only a tiny fraction contained serious errors, those errors were still enough to plant the seed of rarity that has now blossomed into incredible value. So let's pause for a moment and imagine you are holding a 1970 penny in your hand right now, the weight of copper, the familiar image of Lincoln staring back at you, the memorial on the reverse. And you turn it under the light, and suddenly you notice that the date looks doubled, the letters look a little strange, and your heart skips a beat because you realize you might just be holding one of these multimillion-dollar treasures. That is the thrill that drives thousands of people to inspect their change every day, and that is why videos, articles, and guides about rare pennies go viral, because everyone wants to believe that their humble cent could actually be a hidden fortune. And while not every 1970 penny will make you rich, the mere possibility that one could is enough to keep the legend alive. And so collectors study the markers, they look for specific die varieties cataloged by numismatic experts, they compare their coins under magnification, they debate the subtleties of doubling, and they dream of being the next person to find one that will cross the auction block for millions. And auctions are the places where these values are truly revealed, where competitive bidding drives prices higher, where the rarity is showcased and celebrated, and where a single coin can suddenly become a headline. And that is exactly how the narrative of the $6 million penny is sustained, because as long as one sells for an astronomical amount, the story will spread, and others will believe that theirs too could be worth the same. So in conclusion, the 1970 penny stands as a symbol of how mistakes can become miracles in the world of coin collecting. How ordinary objects can transform into extraordinary fortunes, how a small misalignment in a die 50 years ago can ripple into a story that captivates collectors today. And whether you are an experienced numismatist or just someone who loves the idea of treasure hunting, the 1970 penny proves that the magic is real, that sometimes luck, history, and rarity combine to create something truly unforgettable, and that is why it has reached the unbelievable valuation of $6 million. Reminding us all that in the world of coins, it pays to look closely, because the next fortune could be hiding in the palm of your hand. Next, 1983 1 cent USA coin, another incredible journey into the mysterious and thrilling world of rare coins where everyday pocket change can transform into a life-changing fortune. Because today we are diving deep into the story of the 1983 USA 1 cent coin. A coin that on the surface looks like any other Lincoln cent you might find in circulation, but because of its remarkable minting errors and rare mistakes has been valued at an astonishing $4 million, making it one of the most shocking and fascinating treasures in American numismatic history. And as we unravel the details of this coin, we will travel through its historical background, explore the transition in materials that made 1983 such a unique year in cent production, examine the minting processes at the Denver Mint, break down the specific kinds of errors that make this coin so valuable, and paint a picture of why collectors around the world are willing to pay such astronomical amounts for what was once a humble copper-colored coin sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar. So let's start by setting the stage with the year 1983, a year that holds a special place in the Lincoln cent timeline because just 1 year earlier in 1982 the composition of the penny had undergone a dramatic change. For most of its modern history since 1909, the penny had been made of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, but by the early 1980s rising copper prices meant that the intrinsic metal value of a penny was dangerously close to exceeding 1 cent, and to prevent losses the United States Mint made a pivotal switch, beginning to strike pennies primarily in zinc with only a thin copper plating. So from 1982 onward, the majority of cents were struck on planchets made of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating, drastically lowering their production cost. However, this change also created opportunities for minting errors and transitional varieties because during that period of transition some leftover copper planchets from 1982 may have accidentally been fed into the presses for 1983 coins, creating highly valuable off-metal strikes. And that is one of the reasons why certain 1983 pennies, including those minted in Denver, carry incredible value today, with collectors paying up to $4 million for pristine and dramatic examples of these errors. So let's zoom in on the Denver Mint itself, the D Mint mark proudly stamped on the obverse beneath the date, a facility famous for its massive output, churning out billions of coins for everyday commerce. And with such huge production runs, even a tiny fraction of errors can translate into a handful of coins with mistakes that drive collectors wild, and the 1983 D penny is a perfect case study in this phenomenon, because while billions were struck, a microscopic percentage came out different, special, flawed in ways that made them treasures. So what kinds of errors are we talking about? First and foremost, the most famous is the double die reverse error, where the words 1 cent and United States of America appear strongly doubled because of a misalignment in the hubbing process, giving the letters a doubled or shadowed look that is clearly visible and makes the coin instantly recognizable to trained eyes. And among 1983 D pennies, the double die reverse is one of the most coveted varieties, commanding extraordinary prices at auction. Then there are the off-metal strikes, cases where the coin was mistakenly struck on copper planchets left over from 1982, creating transitional errors that are among the rarest of the rare. And because collectors know exactly how few of these exist, their value skyrockets whenever one appears in the market. Then we have off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the planchet, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas along the rim, partial collars where the edge is distorted, die breaks that create raised lumps of extra metal known as cuds, and even broad strikes or double strikes where the coin was struck twice, creating bizarre overlapping images. All of these errors are beloved by collectors, but the combination of being from the transitional 1983 era, carrying the Denver D Mint mark, and showing dramatic doubling or off-metal composition makes these particular cents almost mythical in value. Now, why does this matter so much? Why would someone pay $4 million for a coin that still says 1 cent on it? The answer lies in the world of rarity and demand. And coin collecting value is not just about the metal, it's about how unique, unusual, and historically significant a coin is. And the 1983 D penny has all the right ingredients. It comes from a transitional year when copper and zinc planchets overlapped. It has famous double die varieties. It has dramatic errors that are extremely difficult to find. And it carries a story that captivates both casual collectors and seasoned experts alike, because nothing ignites the imagination like the possibility that a common-looking coin could actually be worth millions. And that brings us to the psychology of collecting itself. People don't just buy coins, they buy stories. They buy the thrill of discovery, the pride of ownership, and the belief that they hold in their hand a piece of history no one else can easily acquire. And the 1983 D penny delivers on that front better than most, because it looks so ordinary yet hides so much potential value. And think about how many of these coins were minted, how many were spent and forgotten, how many still sit in jars, drawers, and piggy banks around the country. Any one of them could be a life-changing fortune if it happens to have the right error. So the hunt is alive and well. with collectors inspecting their 1983 pennies under magnifying glasses, looking closely at the lettering on the reverse for signs of doubling, weighing their coins to see if they land closer to the copper weight of 3.11 grams instead of the zinc weight of 2.5 grams, testing for magnetic properties, analyzing edges, and sending potential finds off to grading services to be authenticated. And when one of these rare gems surfaces, it creates a buzz in the numismatic world. Auction houses promote them, collectors battle over them, and the prices climb to staggering levels. Which is exactly how the legend of the $4,001,983 D penny was born. Because once a coin sells for such a dramatic sum, the story spreads, the mystique grows, and the hunt intensifies. Now imagine for a moment that you are holding one of these coins in your hand, a penny you got in change at a store. You glance at the date, you see 1983 with the D mint mark, you flip it over and the words, 1 cent, look strange, doubled bold, almost like a shadow is cast across them. Your heart races. You pull out a scale and instead of 2.5 grams it weighs 3.11 grams, and suddenly you realize you may be holding a copper transitional error with a double die reverse, one of the rarest and most valuable pennies in the world, a coin worth millions, and in that instant the ordinary becomes extraordinary, the mundane becomes magical, and your penny is no longer just a penny, it is a ticket to wealth, a piece of history, a dream come true. And that is why the 1983 D penny has captured the imagination of so many people. Because it proves that fortune can hide in plain sight, that treasures still exist in circulation, that even the smallest coin can carry the biggest value, and beyond the financial reward, it's the adventure of the hunt that keeps collectors searching, scouring rolls of pennies, visiting coin shops, attending shows, and joining online forums where discoveries are shared and celebrated. Because every new find renews the magic, every auction sale sets a new benchmark, and every story inspires more people to look closely at their change. And so the 1983 D penny worth $4 million is not just a coin, it is a symbol of possibility, a reminder that errors and mistakes are not flaws but miracles in the eyes of collectors, and that history, chance, and demand can combine to elevate a cent into a treasure that rivals the most expensive art or jewelry. And as long as there are pennies left to examine, the legend of the 1983 D will live on, fueling dreams, sparking curiosity, and proving again and again that sometimes the smallest details make the biggest difference. So when you think about rare coins, remember the story of the 1983 D penny. Because hidden in its copper-colored shell is a tale of change, chance, and unimaginable value that has turned an ordinary cent into a $4 million masterpiece. And that is why collectors will never stop searching for the next one. And why the story of this coin will continue to inspire generations of treasure hunters who know that history and fortune can truly be found in the palm of your hand. Next, 1985 D 1 cent USA coin, another extraordinary deep dive into the fascinating world of rare coins where tiny details, hidden minting mistakes, and overlooked historical circumstances can turn what most people see as ordinary change into multi-million-dollar treasures. And today we are focusing on a coin that has shocked collectors, stunned the numismatic community, and captured the imagination of treasure hunters across the world, the 1985 D USA 1 cent coin. A Lincoln Memorial penny from Denver that under ordinary circumstances would only be worth its face value of 1 cent, yet because of unique minting errors, transitional oddities, and the incredible rarity of certain surviving examples, it has reached a value of up to $2 million in the world of coin collecting, and that staggering figure has cemented its place as one of the most sought-after rarities in modern American coinage. So let us begin this journey by setting the stage. The year is 1985, Ronald Reagan is president, the Cold War tensions are still lingering, MTV is shaping pop culture, technology is inching forward toward the computer age, and the United States Mint is operating at full speed producing billions of coins to keep the American economy running smoothly. The Lincoln cent, first introduced in 1909 to honor the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, had already been through decades of production. And since 1959 it had featured the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse designed by Frank Gasparo, while the obverse continued to display Victor David Brenner's famous profile of Lincoln, But by 1985, there was another important fact about these coins. They were no longer made primarily of copper. The Great Transition of 1982 had permanently shifted sense from a composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc to a primarily zinc core of 97.5% zinc with just a 2.5% thin plating of copper, reducing the weight of the coin from 3.11 grams to 2.5 grams. A change designed to save the government millions in production costs, but also a change that introduced the possibility of transitional errors, planchet mistakes, and new kinds of flaws that collectors cherish. And in 1985 at the Denver Mint, one of the busiest mints in the country, with its D mint mark stamped proudly beneath the date, billions of these zinc cents were produced, but among that sea of billions, a tiny number of coins emerged with errors so dramatic, so unusual, and so rare that they would become legendary, commanding values in the millions. And that is where the story of the 1985 D penny worth $2 million begins, because hidden in the vast ocean of normal cents were rare varieties that told a very different story. So what exactly makes these coins so valuable? To understand that, we need to examine the world of minting errors in detail. When the mint produces coins, dies are engraved with designs. Those dies are then pressed into blank planchets with enormous pressure, creating the images, lettering, and details that we see on our coins. But when something goes wrong, whether it's a misalignment, a doubled impression, a wrong planchet, or a die crack, the results can range from minor imperfections to spectacular errors that collectors prize above all else. And the 1985 D penny includes several varieties that fall into that latter category. One of the most important is the doubled die obverse, where the inscriptions like, "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date itself show clear doubling because the die was misaligned during hubbing, creating a shadow-like effect. And these doubled dies, when dramatic and visible, are highly collectible and have driven some 1985 D pennies into the multi-million-dollar range. Then there are off-metal errors, such as a 1985 D penny mistakenly struck on a leftover copper planchet from the pre-1982 era, weighing 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, making it an extraordinary transitional rarity, the kind of coin that might exist in only a handful of examples worldwide. And whenever one of these surfaces, it becomes the centerpiece of an auction, drawing intense bidding wars. Then there are off-center strikes where the design is shifted significantly away from the center, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas, broad strikes where the collar die fails to hold the planchet in place, multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once, creating overlapping images, partial collars that distort the rim, and die breaks that cause raised blobs of metal on the coin surface, sometimes nicknamed cuds, all of which add layers of desirability and uniqueness to the 1985 descent. But perhaps the most famous and most valuable examples are those dramatic doubled dies and off-metal transitional strikes, because their rarity combined with their strong visual appeal makes them irresistible to high-end collectors who want only the rarest treasures. And this is where the magic of numismatics really shines, because the value of these coins is not in their metal content, which in fact is just zinc and a whisper of copper, but in their story, their rarity, their uniqueness, and the emotions they inspire in collectors. And when you think about it, that is what makes coin collecting so addictive, the idea that something so common and overlooked can in rare cases become a miracle, a treasure that transforms its owner's life. And the 1985 D penny has become a symbol of that dream. So why $2 million? Why so much for a penny? Well, rarity combined with demand is the perfect formula. When something is one of a kind or nearly so, when it has a backstory that connects to history, and when wealthy collectors compete for the honor of owning it, the price can skyrocket beyond what seems rational. And that's exactly what has happened with this coin. And to really understand the appeal, imagine for a moment that you are holding a 1985 D penny in your hand. Maybe you just got it in change from a store. You glance at the date, and out of habit you decide to inspect it closely under good lighting. You notice something strange. The word Liberty seems doubled, the letters don't look right, the date itself has a shadow. Or maybe you weigh it, and instead of 2.5 grams it comes in at 3.11 grams, signaling that it might be a transitional copper planchet error. Suddenly your heart races. Your imagination explodes with possibilities. you may be holding one of the rarest coins in modern American history, a coin not worth 1 cent but $2 million, and in that instant, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, and you realize why people dedicate their lives to searching through coin rolls, jars, and collections, because that one discovery can change everything, and this thrill of possibility is what makes coins like the 1985 D penny legendary. So let's also talk about how these coins are authenticated and valued. Because in the numismatic world, condition and certification matter immensely. When a coin like this is discovered, it is usually sent to professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, where experts examine it under magnification, confirm the variety, weigh it, measure it, and assign it a grade on the Sheldon scale, with coins in mint state or gem condition commanding the highest prices. And when one of these authenticated rarities comes up for auction, collectors with deep pockets battle fiercely, often pushing the final price into the millions, and each sale reinforces the legend, spreads the story, and fuels the hunt, and that is why the 1985 D penny is such a powerful symbol of numismatics, because it embodies everything that makes the hobby thrilling: history, rarity, error, chance, and reward. And when we think about the billions of pennies minted in 1985, it is humbling to realize that only a microscopic fraction hold this incredible value. Meaning there could still be undiscovered treasures out there, sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar, waiting for the right eyes to find them. And that is the essence of coin collecting: the chase, the discovery, the story, and the possibility that the next fortune is already in your possession without you even realizing it. And so the 1985 D penny worth $2 million continues to inspire collectors everywhere, reminding us all that minting mistakes can create miracles, that errors can become treasures, that stories matter as much as metal, and that even in the modern age, the thrill of finding hidden wealth is alive and well. So as you search through your own pennies, remember the tale of the 1985 D, because one day you might be the one to uncover the next multimillion-dollar cent, a coin that proves once again that fortune can truly be hiding in the palm of your hand. Next, 1994 1 cent USA coin, an extraordinary journey into the thrilling and mysterious world of rare coins where small details, minting errors, and historical twists can elevate an ordinary object into a priceless treasure. And today our spotlight shines on the 1994 USA 1 cent coin, a Lincoln Memorial penny that most people would dismiss as just another piece of pocket change. Yet in certain rare cases this coin has been valued at up to $3 million because of extraordinary minting mistakes, transitional anomalies, and incredibly scarce varieties that have captured the attention of collectors and investors across the globe. And in order to understand why this particular penny from 1994 can command such jaw-dropping value, we must dive deep into the background of the coin, the minting processes, the types of errors that occurred, and the psychology of collectors who drive prices into the millions. So let's begin with the basics. The year 1994 was part of the modern era of Lincoln Memorial cents, which had been in production since 1959, with the obverse featuring Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Abraham Lincoln that first appeared in 1909, and the reverse showcasing Frank Isparo's design of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., which in itself was a symbolic tribute to Lincoln and the nation's ideals of unity. And by 1994 the cent had firmly adopted the post-1982 composition of 97.5% zinc with a thin 2.5% copper plating, meaning that, unlike earlier copper cents that weighed 3.11 grams, the zinc cents weighed just 2.5 grams, making them cheaper to produce but also more prone to unique kinds of minting errors, because the softer zinc cores could blister, bubble, or develop plating defects, creating collectible varieties. And while billions of pennies were struck in 1994 across multiple mint facilities including Philadelphia and Denver, only a microscopic fraction contained errors so dramatic and rare that they transformed into million-dollar treasures. And that is where the story of the 1994 penny worth $3 million begins, because in the vast ocean of ordinary cents, a handful became legends. So what makes these coins so valuable? The answer lies in the world of minting errors and die varieties. Because during the coin-making process countless steps must align perfectly, from preparing blank planchets to striking them with engraved dies, to ensuring proper pressure and alignment, and when something goes wrong, the results can be spectacular, and in 1994 some of those spectacular mistakes gave birth to coins that today are virtually priceless. One of the most famous among these is the doubled die variety, where parts of the design such as "Liberty in God We Trust" or the date 1994 itself appear doubled due to misalignment of the dies during the hubbing process. And when the doubling is bold and visible to the naked eye, collectors go wild, driving prices into the millions, because doubled die varieties are among the most beloved errors in numismatics. Then there are off-center strikes, where the coin's design is not centered on the planchet, leaving blank crescent-shaped areas that make the coin instantly recognizable as an error, and in extreme cases these can be worth thousands, but in combination with other rare features they can escalate dramatically in value. Then we have broad strikes, where the coin expands beyond its normal rim because the collar die failed, creating a distorted, oversized penny. We have die cracks and die chips that leave raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin, often nicknamed cuds, and each of these adds character and rarity. But perhaps the most legendary 1994 errors are those involving wrong planchets. For instance, a 1994 penny mistakenly struck on a copper planchet left over from before 1982, weighing 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams. Or even more dramatic, a penny struck on a dime planchet or a foreign coin blank, and such coins are so scarce that they can reach astronomical prices, with collectors willing to pay millions for the privilege of owning one. And let's not forget plating errors unique to the zinc era, where bubbles, blisters, or peeling copper layers create unusual appearances that, while sometimes subtle, can also create spectacular unique specimens. And among these categories, certain 1994 pennies have crossed into legend. Authenticated by professional grading services like PCGS and NGC, slabbed in protective holders, and auctioned off for breathtaking sums, with one such example fueling the story of a $3 million penny. And the question then becomes, why would someone pay such a fortune? And the answer is because coin collecting is not just about metal, it is about history, rarity, uniqueness, and the thrill of ownership. When a wealthy collector sees a chance to own a one-of-a-kind coin, they are not just buying zinc and copper, they are buying bragging rights, they are buying a story to tell, they are buying a piece of history that no one else can claim, and that drives the price far beyond the intrinsic value. So let us pause to imagine the thrill of discovery. Picture yourself at home going through a jar of old change. You pick up a 1994 penny. It feels ordinary, light in the hand, yet when you look closely you see something unusual. Maybe the date looks doubled. Maybe the coin weighs more than expected. Maybe the reverse design looks shifted, and suddenly your pulse quickens because you realize you may be holding a hidden treasure worth millions. And in that instant you understand why collectors dedicate endless hours to hunting through pocket change, bank rolls, and coin collections, because the chance of finding a fortune disguised as a penny is real, and that chance drives the entire numismatic hobby. And the 1994 penny is a perfect example of how possibility itself fuels excitement. And it is not just small-time collectors who chase these coins. Major auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers have handled these rarities, showcasing them in glossy catalogs, promoting them as once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and fueling intense bidding wars among the world's wealthiest numismatists. And when the gavel falls and a coin sells for millions, the legend grows, inspiring new generations of treasure hunters, and reinforcing the belief that extraordinary fortune hides in plain sight. And so the 1994 penny worth $3 million is not just a coin, it is a phenomenon, a story, a symbol of luck, rarity, and possibility. And what makes it even more magical is the fact that billions of ordinary 1994 pennies exist, yet only a tiny handful are different, which means that at any given moment one of these treasures could still be sitting undiscovered in a jar, a drawer, or a forgotten collection, waiting for someone to spot it. And that is why coin collecting is more than a hobby, it is an adventure, a treasure hunt, a chance to touch history and change your life at the same time. And when we step back and look at the 1994 penny in this light, we see that its value of $3 million is not just a reflection of metal or rarity, it is a reflection of human passion, the way we assign value to stories, the way we crave uniqueness, the way we chase the dream of discovery. And that is why this coin is celebrated. why it has earned a place in numismatic history, and why its story continues to circulate and inspire. Because as long as there are pennies left in circulation, as long as collectors keep searching, the dream of finding a 1994 penny worth $3 million will remain alive, fueling imaginations and reminding us all that sometimes the smallest, most ordinary things can hold the greatest surprises. So if you ever come across a 1994 penny, take a closer look. Because it just might be the treasure of a lifetime hiding in the palm of your hand.